Well, 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 what do we have here? This episode was previously recorded about an article from the Heritage Foundation on the Smithsonian Institute and whether or not they have lost their way. I'm going to post up right here a link to the Facebook post that initially caught my attention, that got me interested in this topic. And based on the arguments from that post, I immediately went over to Facebook, not to Facebook, to their website to see what type of propaganda was being pushed, to see if they were pushing LGBTQ pro propaganda, because I'm not out here supporting that. So, I would be offended too if that was the messaging that was being pushed, or if they were putting hate messages against white people. If I was seeing that, yes, too, I would be offended by that. So I went over to the site. Allergies just hit me. I went over there and curious to see what I would see when I arrived at the site. The complaint was made something about workshops or so, and I really didn't see anything there. So maybe at some point there was something that was presented that was offensive to somebody. But you have people in this government now, people in the party in power now, who feel that anybody else's opinions or beliefs that are contrary to theirs are wrong and should be done away with. And it's just not like that. And I will be glad when this is gone, because that's a dangerous way to be. Because their view is anything that doesn't agree with me needs to be eliminated, and that type of thinking has no place in our world. That's just the reality of it. It's a dangerous way of thinking. It needs to be changed. It's a dangerous way of thinking. This was not part of the other videos that I had recorded, but somehow it made it into this video. Anyone that thinks that anyone whose way of belief is contrary to their own needs to be destroyed is a dangerous person. And I've had experience with that. But anyway, when I visited the Smithsonian website, what I saw was to the contrary. They have, of course, physical displays that highlight different aspects of America's true history. They have great educational resources. Some I will mention, I will post up in here. For teachers, for parents, for students, that talk about things like the Constitution. It talks about voting. Talks about debate, talks about concession speeches. And I voted for Trump, I'm going to say it, 2020. And I think that part about concession speeches is so important, because if a person can make a concession speech and admit they've lost, that questions the entire democracy system. And that has been the root of a lot of this problem that this nation has faced. None of this was in my previous two videos. Has been at the root of the cause of a lot of the problems that this nation has been at over the past 5 years. The inability to admit defeat. And like I said, this is not being against Trump, because I voted for Trump in 2020. And I like him despite his flaws, because I am flawed myself, and I have a little arrogance in me too, so I get that. But that right there is a problem. And the importance of concession speeches, voting, where you stand, all the civic discussions that really are not covered adequately in school. There's a lot of materials there that are available to be used. I highly recommend it. So, back to this article. I found this article in May by this Mr. Gonzalez, whose criticism, and he was talking about this Taiwan and their museum and all that. And in his article, he didn't show that white lady. He showed this black man who was like the secretary of the museum or whatever. And he criticized his leadership. So to me, this seems like racism. To me, at the root, it was racism. When I saw that white man showing that white lady's picture, and he was offended by what she said, that was not racism. That was him questioning her direction and the types of workshops and how she had took it upon herself to sort of focus where it was going. That was his positioning was not racial. But from that article, what I get from that article is that you put a black man's face up there and you're a Hispanic man trying to pacify white people as people do, to gain favor. And I'm like, no, not today. So, yeah, no. So let's go back here to is there something wrong with the way the Smithsonian is representing American history? Well, see, since we're trying to take race out of the conversation today, let's take white identity out. Let's take black identity out. Let's take Hispanic identity out. Let's take Asian identity out, and let's just have American identity, shall we? There's just an American identity. But America's identity has been created through a lot of different experiences. Just like our personalized, who we are as individuals has been created through a variety of experiences. And each of those experiences has molded us. Every relationship, every letdown, our education, the teachers we were exposed to, the people who rejected us, the people who invested in us, the people who gave us opportunities. All those things are what made us into who we are today as individuals.
There's a speed camera ahead.
And all those things are what made this country into who we are today as well. So, based on what I've seen, the Smithsonian is doing a fine job with telling America's story as it is. Maybe the people who are criticizing it need to look inside themselves and wonder why it's bothering them so much.